Death Battle rapidly approaches its 2025 season finale. It's been a hell of a year and then some, especially if you include the 4 2024 episodes. They've been wildly successful with their independent run in my eyes. Even if I would have liked to see different results for a few episodes, I generally agree with the reasoning for both the result and the reason for the matchup. And then they announced its season finale matchup, Ash Ketchum vs Yugi Muto. I haven't been less excited for a season finale since Gogeta vs Vegito. Don't get me wrong, I grew up with these series as Saturday morning cartoon staples and even indulged in the card collecting and video games. But these two franchises combined in a matchup? To me, it feels off for too many reasons to be happy seeing it. First off, the matchup itself feels too Season 1 coded, if that makes sense. The connections are too bare bones without any real depth. The two major connections I see are the plethora of monsters they control and their mutual run on Kids WB. From what I saw on the Death Battle wiki page in regards to connections, the majority of the rest are just shonen tropes like travel with friends, battle evil groups, fight in championships, or else contrived ones like they met their partner through an artifact given by an old man. Like, what? You might as well be talking about Shaolin Showdown versus Jackie Chan Adventures as a matchup, because they both also aired in Kids WB and focused on fighting over magical artifacts. Not only are the similarities too lenient, but the differences should have driven a steel wedge between these franchises. For instance, Pokemon are physical beings that are raised by their trainers and grow up alongside them. Dual monsters are only occasionally shown to be more than cards brought to hologram reality, and those instances only involve static spirits incapable of the same level of bonding. Some bonding, yes, but nowhere near the Pokemon level. This difference is reflected in the main win conditions for both series contests. Pokemon battles focus on the Pokemon remaining, whereas Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels focus on the duelist's own life points. Looking further at the characters, monsters, and logistics should more than exemplify why these two series should not have been considered compatible. In regards to the characters compared on this matchup, they couldn't be more different. Ash is known for only having won 3 major championships in his career, with only 2 related to the games out of 8 or so, whereas Yugi takes every tournament he enters to the point of being known as the king of games before the first major arc. Ash is known as a strategic brawler equally willing to throw hands and throw a Pokeball, while Yugi settles no conflicts outside of a duel arena, or getting a beatdown at his school that one time. While Ash has a few oddball strategies and more than one disregard to type resistances, Yugi is carried through his victories as much by plot armor as he is by his outright breaking the rules to suit his needs. Finally, Ash shows genuine care for each of his Pokemon, from Pikachu to Charizard to Muk to Snorlax to Torkoal and the rest. If his Pokemon don't want to evolve, he doesn't force them. Pikachu and Bulbasaur as the prime early examples. Yugi, meanwhile, is just as willing to ritual sacrifice his Dark Magician as he is to sacrifice his lesser monsters to summon him to the field. Whatever gets him the win is fair game. Even Timaeus rebelled against Yugi for the whole Orichalcos incident. The monsters themselves are equally, if not more so, different. Pokemon grow, have different stages, usually, and attack using a variety of moves that whittle down their opponents over time. Battles are flexible and determined by strategy just as much as outright power. Dual monsters, on the other hand, have set power levels, outside of magic, spell, and trap card augmenting, distinct attack and defense stances, and a rigid samurai-esque system of one attack, one kill combat exchanges. Duels are between duelists, with the strategy coming not from the individual monster clashes, but from the setup and everything else around them. Combining monsters and masters just makes things painfully lopsided in regard to advantage. Ash might have a trick or two with Mega Evolution items and that power-up with Greninja, but Yugi has a plethora of magic, spell, and trap cards to completely dominate the battlefield. Magic Cylinder and Mirror Force redirect any and all attacks. Horn of Heaven kills any one Pokemon Ash attempts to bring out. Brain Control directly takes control of one monster, if not Ash himself. Monster Reborn brings back any felled monster from either side on Yugi's control. Polymerization and Ritual Summons power up certain monsters. And Swords Revealing Light give a clear victory window of opportunity. Clever strategy can only go so far against an opponent who literally has the deck stacked in his favor. This leads into the question of logistics. What they're bringing, what they can hold, and where they're fighting. At any point, Ash is allowed to carry a maximum of 6 Pokemon, while Yugi can carry his whole deck and an army in his pocket. The only place to circumvent this limit is for the fight to take place at Professor Oak's lab in Palatown. Then, how many monsters are each master allowed on the battlefield? Extraneous rules give Ash a maximum of 3 and Yugi 5 monster slots, if they're playing by any standard rules to begin with. It's safe to assume they're not, so a full army battle it is. Finally, it's safe to assume that, with Ash having full access to all of his Pokemon from the jump, that Yugi has full access to all of his cards with his entire deck constituting his hand. Even with the problems that the Death Battle team showed to have during the cast episode discussing this matchup, this is the most likely outcome I think that they would reach when really sitting down and deciding this. I see the problems mounting immediately. With his entire deck in his hand, Yugi's second ace of Slifer the Sky Dragon would be at max attack strength from the start, with an effect that attacks any opponent that is brought to the field after it. Not only that, but Yugi would also have every conceivable means to protect his dragon accessible to him instead of being locked behind random draws. Sure, every spell, trap, or monster summoned would erode that attack capability, but accounting for the sheer quantity of cards in Yugi's deck would make a lot of drops for the bucket to run out significantly enough to matter. I could go on listing other clear counters, like Chain of Destruction wiping out Ash's Tauros herd in one fell swoop. None of that matters. The real stroke of victory comes not from the monsters, not from the cards or battle gimmicks, but from the one indisputable advantage that Yugi carries around his neck. Yami Yugi, Atem. With the Spirit of the Pharaoh, the fight goes from a fighting type versus a normal type to a fighting versus psychic ghost type. All it would take is one Mind Crush or Soul Switch to completely take Ash out of the fight and render the verdict immediately as anticlimactic as possible. Only Honor ever prevented that possibility mid or pre-duel, a trait most likely removed here. Maybe Gengar infiltrated the Millennium Puzzle and attacked Atem directly or held Yugi's soul hostage, but that's still not a guaranteed counter. As I said towards the beginning, I grew up with these franchises, these characters. I'm not completely opposed to them being in Death Battle. In fact, I devised what I thought to be better matchups for both of them. Whether they're better in your eyes is up to your discretion. For Ash and Pikachu, I matched them up against Kyo and Zatch Bell from Zatch Bell. Matchup between two adolescents and their electric-type partners with signature appetites. While it leaves Ash's other Pokemon on the sidelines, it does make for a battle more in both characters' wheelhouses, focused on maneuvering and on-the-fly strategy as much as power and endurance. For Yugi, I picked Cardcaptor Sakura, a fellow magical girl sequence transformer who fights with card spirits and a mystical artifact. It's a matchup that can still deliver on the monsters and magic on a more even and thematic playing field. Thanks for hearing my thoughts on this matchup, and feel free to join me for the next installment of this series if they ever choose to do Joker vs. Green Goblin.